Hello, welcome to Math for All, where we try to make math creative, curious, and inclusive for everyone. I'm Molly Vokey, and here we are. Welcome to Math for All. Heidi is not here with us tonight. She has a commitment with her kids, and so I am going to be doing this show with Marian, and I'm very excited about it. So please follow us on Blue Sky, Math for All YouTube channel, where we have all of our interviews, and our Math for All Facebook page. You can also find us at our website. And of course, as always, this show is sponsored by our book, Math Activators, which was put out by Didex. Today, we are going to be talking about leadership. So Marian Dingle is here with us tonight, here with me tonight, and we are going to be talking about leadership and what it really means and what does it have to do with mathematics. So let me introduce Marian. Marian Dingle is the implementation manager at Assessment for Good, an R&D program creating asset-based formative assessments and interventions that honor each learner's unique process for learning, growth, and development. She is a veteran elementary educator who taught for 22 years and advocates for marginalized students, families, and educators. She has served on multiple NCTM committees, has written articles for NCTM, Learning for Justice magazine, Ed Week, and the Global Math Department. She has presented at NCTM, NCSM, and NCTE conferences and has been a guest on many educational podcasts. She currently serves as the president of Todos Mathematics for All. So let's bring her in. Hello. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
I'm so happy to see you here.
It is wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And I think that I saw you in this last fall, or was it NCTM, NCTE?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Heidi and I did a lot of conferences in the fall, so they all got very confused with each other.
I
But
understand.
NCTE was a nice conference. Are you going this year?
I am not. I'm
No,
not.
Heidi's
A
going.
colleague is going.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. All right. Well, we always like to start with what is your math story so our listeners can get to know you.
Okay. I have so many math stories. Maybe I'll start with what is probably my origin story.
Ooh.
I've always thought of myself as a mathematician, someone who loves math, someone who kind of organizes their world mathematically.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely got that from my parents. My dad loved math, always talked math with me, taught me all of its secrets. I thought he was a magician. He definitely identified as a math person. But also my mom. My mom was an educator who definitely did not identify as a math person, but everything that she did was very mathematical, even though she probably didn't know it at the time. Would do things like, just things in the kitchen, measurement, shortcuts, how to think of things, how to quantify things, how to estimate time, how to figure out if you've got enough money. I mean, all of those things that you just kind of pick up from hanging out with your mom are just so mathematical.
Yeah.
But, the formal mathematics, she was definitely intimidated by, and she shouldn't have been. She was a great mathematician.
Isn't that wild? Because so many cultures have this whole mathematical world, just like what you're talking about, right? But I specifically know that like there are cultures that consider like the math life at home and then your school math. And they don't have any relationship whatsoever.
Right. But actually, I think for many of us now, currently, we still kind
Mhm.
of operate that way,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Mhm.
My mother being an educator, and I was an only child, she hung out with other educators, so I
Mhm.
had tons and tons of women, Black women, who were teachers and special educators and principals and assistant principals and district leaders that were all in my immediate circle. And all of these women helped shape me as a person, but from that, kind of educator perspective.
Right.
Um, and there was definitely, at least how I grew up, there was definitely a kind of mathematical code switching. Like there was the math that you did at home, the
Mhm.
math that made sense to you, the math that you did in your head and was expected for you to be able to do to survive.
Mhm.
And there was also, the kind of game that you had to play in school, the rules that you had to follow. And for my mother, it was really important for me to understand all those invisible and unwritten rules so that
Mhm.
I could not only survive school, but I could thrive in school. And I will never forget, indebted to her and that entire mathematical community under which I grew up that kind of just guided me through. I don't know, even now, I don't know how you really get through that without having someone to help you navigate. It's a thing.
Well, hence the reason why there's a lot of people who don't like math, right?
Yep. Yes.
They maybe
Absolutely.
don't have the same kind of joy and support that you had around mathematics.
Yes, I'm very, very thankful.
Mm.
I realized early I was very unique in what I had. Like if I
Mhm.
had a question about a particular subject, my mother knew a teacher. If I had a question about a school, my mother could hook me up. I mean, the network was
Yeah.
vast. And still, I have a story about um, several stories about being underestimated, especially mathematically,
Mhm.
about being put into the lower math class and having to have my parents intervene. My husband has a similar story. Um, it's always, usually around like sixth, seventh, eighth grade where that
Mhm.
happens. We had to do that for both of our children. I mean, it just doesn't end. Like you are judged on your appearance and your culture. And it is assumed that, oh, yes, Johnny is a really nice, compliant, well behaved child. And they're probably well spoken too, but they're probably not that smart. Let's just put
Mm.
them in a place where they can survive because we like Johnny. And it has been, my job as a parent to kind of push through that. And hopefully, once I have grandchildren, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But once I have grandchildren, I won't have to do that again, and my children won't have to fight for them.
Mm. Well, you're not, I mean, I think that's many, many people's story, right? Having to advocate for yourself or for your kid to be able to get what they deserve where other kids don't, other families don't have to advocate for that. Urgh, sorry for that.
No worries.
Well, look, you're doing pretty good. You're doing pretty good. It got you somewhere, that's for sure. And you certainly had a lot of support, so that's good.
Very thankful.
Um, but it kind of does lead into what you now do, right? I mean, you yourself became an educator. And so let's talk about it. What is leadership really, and what does it have to do with mathematics?
It's funny that I became an educator, and it was absolutely not my mother's wish. It was forbidden. For her,
Really?
oh yes, she very strongly believed that educators were not respected, not well paid, and she wanted more for me. She often said that I was expected to go to college, but if I majored in education, she wouldn't pay for it. So I didn't happen
Oh,
to find education as a career pathway until after she passed away.
oh my goodness.
Yes,
So what did
yes.
you major in?
Math. What else?
So she allowed you to major in math
Yeah,
and just
but not to
expected you
teach
to go
it.
do some mathy job, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I
Okay.
was math and engineering, and met my husband in engineering school, and discovered I didn't really like it and didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I finally happened upon economics. And I got my undergrad degree in economics and loved it. Started grad school, was determined to become a professor until, I got married and I had my first child,
Yeah.
and I became obsessed with education. And everything I was reading, instead of the papers I was supposed to be reading and studying for comps, I was reading ed psych and math, and how I could instill in my firstborn, my daughter, this love of mathematics and this mathematical skill that, if I had just gotten this piece, she can go farther
Right.
than I can. Yeah. So long story short, I, had a moment and I was like, I can't take this anymore. And went to see my dean, who was also a woman. And she's like, I get it. Let's put you in the education department and get you out of here. And the rest is history.
Wow. Isn't it amazing how life evolves
It
and you
is.
have no idea, you really sometimes have no idea what to expect. I mean, grandest plans don't hardly ever turn out to be how they are planned.
Yeah. What is it they say? If when we plan, God laughs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, that goes back to what we were talking about before. Now that I'm over 50, I kind of laugh at myself from back in the day when I thought that I had everything under control. Hilarious.
Yes. It's amazing how much wisdom really teaches us. I remember that feeling of, being 20 and 21 and thinking
Hmm.
that I knew everything.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then 30, I was like, okay, maybe I don't know so much because now I
Hmm.
got a mortgage and I got to, get food on the table every night. But then 40 was great, but 50, glorious, just glorious, glorious. I know you and I can probably swap stories, but
Yeah, I think
um,
so.
it's that
I think.
confidence, right?
Hmm.
That confidence. It's that you've been through some things,
Yes.
you've been
Hmm.
around, you've seen the cycles, you know what to expect, you can see things coming a mile away. That maybe others who are a little younger are still learning. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And sometimes it's really hard to watch them learn it because you know that you can't tell them and they'll just accept it.
Mhm.
But like, what's the point of having all this knowledge if you can't use it?
Right. But then the teacher in us, steps in and
Yes,
says, "You know what? I'm gonna let you
exactly.
learn that on your own." Yeah, yeah.
Or I'm going to teach
But
it to you real hard until you learn it.
oh, yeah, well, we remember that definitely doesn't work. Yeah,
Definitely not. Definitely.
right. So,
Oh,
realizing I'm not even answering your question. Okay,
oh,
so
that's
what is
okay.
leadership?
That's okay. We we have plenty of
Um,
time to talk about it.
it's I find it fascinating that we are all taught that leadership is just a great thing to which we should aspire. That, for example, you shouldn't be satisfied with just being a teacher. You should want to lead the school. And then you should want to lead the district. And lead in all these different ways. If you're in corporate America, you can't be satisfied with your entry-level job. You want to lead people. You want people to work for you and report to you. And leadership is this thing in our society now that just seems not just aspirational, but it's expected. Like if you're somewhere for a while, the only way that you can show growth is to become a leader. We've got all these people that are making millions of dollars off of leadership books and workshops that people go to and spend all weekend learning to hone their skills and their power of influence and all of these things. And yet, we can be in a situation where clearly there are so many different opportunities for leadership right now, and we have silence. What's the disconnect? So it's been making me think for the last, 5 or more years about what leadership really is. And why do we want it? I think that there's a conflation of leadership and power hoarding that people are kind of putting together that they shouldn't. Leadership to me is something that you do for. It is a way to serve. I remember my first NCTM conference in San Diego. I had just joined. I had heard of NCTM. I had been a math educator for at least a decade at that point. But I never saw it as a place for me. I never saw there being any real benefit. There was this huge membership fee and lots of resources I guess I could tap into. Like at that point, the internet was just a new thing. Hey, Ty.
I know he's responding, and I thought we should tap in. Right, leadership is a direction and not a position. He says.
Interesting.
Right. And I almost feel like he's predicting what you're about to say.
Well, he probably is. He probably is. Yes, he's very good at that. I was talking about San Diego, and the reason why I decided to go was because I'd found out that Robert Barry was president. And for me, that changed everything. That's when I started to see myself as someone that maybe should be in those spaces. Fast forward a couple of years to the pandemic. I had been a member of Todos Mathematics for All, but wasn't really active. And I saw that Linda Fulmore was president. And at that point, I had assumed, again, that, that really wasn't a space for me to lead. That's something where I should follow. And it wasn't until seeing her in that position where I thought, oh, I could be on the board too. And I think I ran that same year for a board seat. But in this, over 50 time of life that we are in, I think I'm learning that for me, if I really want to be a leader, then that means I need to be a person worthy of following. I need to work on me. Being authentic is really important to me. People should be able to see me, to understand me, to believe me, to trust me, to know that I say what I'm going to, that I do what I say I'm going to do. I am going to give you the truth as I know it at that time. And yes, Ty, I absolutely agree. Leadership has never been a position, not in the sense that we have thought about it. I think true leadership is serving a collective, and leadership is not something that you do alone. It's not something that you even can do alone.
Right.
Leadership comes from the group. Leadership comes from an agreement among a community that these things will happen. Molly, you and I, before the show, were talking about, how
Yeah.
things used to be done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, the fact that there's this hierarchy now, that it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't always like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's how I tend to think of leadership. It's deciding who you are and what you stand for, what you are about, regardless of what's going on around you, so that when life happens, you already know what to do. Your steps are already ordered.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been thinking a lot about leadership in the classroom
Mhm.
and how that relates to the type of leader I like to be just in my own personal life when I coordinate events and volunteer and do my regular stuff in my life. And I think they are very parallel. Like it speaks to very much about what you're talking about, that what I want teachers to do in the classroom is to relinquish the control and allow students to be the center of the classroom, and for you to take a back seat in the front,
Mhm.
right? And allow the kids to do the thinking and you to facilitate those thoughts so that conversations can be had, because kids are not skilled in that area, but you're kind of managing that while, as you described, the collective is the moving force. Like I'm there to allow that to happen and to make sure that it goes forward, but I'm not the one standing in the front who's moving it along. I'm really the one in the back that's saying, you all go.
Right, right. It took me a couple years to figure that out.
Yes.
I did what I remember seeing in the classroom in the first few years of my career. I
Yeah.
did what I was taught to do, that
Mhm.
you have to have control and don't smile till Christmas, like all those things. I hope no one still teaches that.
Oh gosh, right. I
Um,
forgot about that.
but I think where I am now, and it's been a while since I've been in the classroom, um, where I'm landing now is that teachers often don't see themselves as leaders, which is why,
Hmm.
well, part of why they don't stay in the classroom. Um, but teachers are not only leading in their interactions with students, but it's also those families.
Mm.
And when I started, I never really realized that that was a thing too. Like I knew, I would have conferences and I'd have to make an occasional phone call, and maybe there would be, maybe some impromptu drop-ins by parents, but it took me a while to understand that I was really in a position of this collective, not just being the students that I had, but
Hmm.
these families that
Hmm.
if I could be part of that collective, then this thing that we had built would last beyond that 1 year. Maybe I would have a sibling of a former student, or not, but I would have a connection to that family when they left me and were with another teacher
Mm.
next year, or the next year, or in middle school, or high school, or college, or when they have their first child. I mean,
Hmm.
it doesn't have to end. Your leadership doesn't have to end because it doesn't depend on that position, as Tyra was saying.
Yeah, that's so, I mean, it is, teaching is such a unique thing if you stay in the same grade for many years, because they file through and they go on, and every year you have a new set of students, and often you don't really know what, I mean, especially if you teach, first grade, or you might never see those kids again, or
Yeah.
so it is kind of wild, but to think of your leadership more as I mean, the way you were describing it to me was equating it to relationship. And that feels so less top down to me than the idea of leadership can emote for people.
Absolutely. Agreed. It should be a pretty flat experience. Of course, you are the adult, you are responsible, and there is room for you, as you were saying, to take a step back and allow the brilliance to shine through. And brilliance can come from the student in front of you or their little sibling that hasn't even started school yet, or their grandmother or their auntie. I mean, it's really endless. So I think people say this all the time, especially when lockdown first happened and people changed jobs, and the Great Resignation, blah blah blah. But teaching really is so foundational to so many jobs. I just remember when I left the classroom and being where I'm working now, there's so many things that I leaned on, like project management. I never
So you mean skills that you
managed
learned
a
from
project.
teaching that you now apply elsewhere.
Yes,
Got you. Yeah.
yes, absolutely, yes. And being intimidated by these fancy names of things, you're like, oh, like when I organized 5th grade graduation. Oh, okay, got it. Or, how do you, like I when I first started, I was in charge of the program's social media. So, all little tricks and things I learned there, like, okay, wow, let's do that. I know how to do that. But it was called something different. It was fancy name, fancy title. It was like, oh, all I'm really doing is connecting to people and motivating them and guiding them if they need help. I can do that. All I'm really doing is listening to them and figuring out what it is that they need based on what they're saying, and helping them create a plan for them to get there. I can do that because I'm a teacher.
But it feels like with the work that you have done and the positions that you've had, and I mean, the publicity that you've had in the education community, like there's been lots of opportunities for you to expand your leadership skills from teaching, right? Oh, are you frozen or am I frozen?
Hi, I'm here.
Hi. Okay.
I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, let's try my video
Oh,
again.
there you are. You're back.
Okay, I'm
I don't know.
back.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Well, you were
Sorry.
frozen when I was talking, but I said it seems like there's been a lot of opportunity in the roles that you have played in the education world to expand your leadership skills in ways outside of the classroom. You've had lots of leadership opportunities, volunteer and otherwise, right?
Yes. Yes, I have. I didn't know that that was possible, but that there was that whole world out there until social media. So I will always be grateful to social media for that. Um, I wish that other educators knew that there are other things they can do, because a lot of
Mm,
times, you feel a little stifled. You're like, okay,
yeah,
I can go back to school and get a higher degree. I can lead a school. I can go into district leadership. But there's so many things that you can learn and teach yourself while still teaching
hmm,
that I think are underexplored. Like I was in it for 22 years, but
hmm,
I could have easily stayed 10 more and still learn something different every year.
hmm,
There's just so much there. There's so much richness, and I'm sad that veteran educators are becoming more and more scarce,
hmm.
because I think every school needs them. I remember when I first started teaching, who I would go to for advice,
Oh, hmm.
um, or maybe just the opposite, like, "Oh, I'll never be, that person because, they're
Right,
so set in their ways."
right,
But those people are important. They're the holders of history, the holders
right.
of, all of the stories of different relationships and different leaders and all of those things. I think
Even
we're
different
just
pedagogies and
yeah,
things have come around again in
yeah.
terms of teaching and yeah,
I remember my
yeah.
first year teaching, we were getting this new curriculum. And so, a friend of mine and I, we were both in the same grade, started together. We decided, to stay up all night. Like for weeks, we were just making things that would go with the new reading series, our own resources, right? Like all these custom made little things. And our grade chair just laughed at us, just laughed her head off. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, we just wanted to be her parents." She's like, "Girl, don't you know in 3 years they're gonna change it again?" "Don't do that. That's not a good use of your time." And she was right.
Yeah.
We made all of those things and couldn't use them at all in 3 years.
Yeah. It's it's amazing. I feel like we're at a kind of a lucky time right now, depending on how you're looking at it, but for me it feels lucky that math is the the focus of math education is becoming much more about understanding and joy, dare I say. Um, and I feel that that's new for people. I mean, when I go to a party and people ask me what I do and I tell them I'm a math consultant, first of all, they don't know what I'm talking about. And then when I tell them what that is, they're like, "Oh, I hated math." Or, there's so much of that out there, or I'm not a math person or whatever. And we just have this opportunity now to make make much more positive relationships with math because of the work that you are doing and so many other people who are working in equity or working in for the joy of math. And I feel like I'm working in this business at a lucky time even though I'm not teaching.
That's interesting to me. I'm having feelings. I I don't know if I would say lucky. Um, and I don't know, like, I'm not fortunate enough to be in schools. I
Mhm,
work primarily remotely. I talk to a lot of school partners who
mhm,
are leaders in schools, but I don't get to talk directly to kids that much. I used to
mhm,
tutor, I don't tutor anymore. Um, And from what I can tell, schools seem to be the same as they always were, but that's just from my vantage point. You're in there every day. I'm not.
Well, so I think I have both experiences depending on where I am. The work is either really hard for me to try to create change, or there are these exuberant teachers who are wanting change and are embracing change. So I'm seeing both sides, I think.
Mm.
So obviously hanging on to those really, eager teachers to make change. Um, it's not easy though. It's
Absolutely.
definitely
It's not
not.
easy. No, it's
No,
not.
and especially you go to all these conferences and you have all these amazing conversations, and there's all these educators, and there could be thousands of educators there. But there are how many more thousands of educators out there who are not being exposed to all of this positivity about math and joy and um, the idea of creating change in your math class where the children's voice matters and not just you standing in front of the classroom. So
Mhm.
there will always be work, I think.
Yes, that's true. I want to go back to what I was saying about being a leader worthy of being
Yes,
followed.
yes. Mhm.
Um, there was a point where I realized that I wasn't really walking my talk as far as what I heard myself saying about my beliefs about equity and um, belonging and making sure that everyone was seen and valued. And I remember saying in conversation, I think that in order to actually be inclusive, that your friend group should be inclusive.
Mhm.
Um, you can't really say that you are open to to all different types of people if your friends all look like you.
Mhm.
And I say that I wasn't walking the talk because at that time, that wasn't true. I didn't have friends from different races and backgrounds and sexual orientations at that time. And it took a while. It took some years. It took some really tough conversations with people that I love. But now I do have that group, and it's everything. It has changed everything for me. So when I talk about needing to do that self-work, that's part of it.
Mhm.
But I think it's more than just joy in mathematics that I'm
Mhm.
after. It's more than just passing the mic to kids and letting them explore and discover mathematics on their own that I, Marian, personally am after. I want belonging for all of us. I want true co-creation. I don't want to be invited. I want to plan the party with you. And that part is the part where I'm still struggling to find hope. Um,
Mhm.
in order to do that, that takes a willingness to share. Molly, I think it's my internet.
It could be. Just keep talking. I can hear you.
Okay. I'll come on camera in a bit, maybe. Um, The last thing I remember saying is that go ahead.
No, you can go. You go. The last thing that you were saying was that you're finding it hard to find hope.
Yeah, I think we, myself included,
Mm-hmm.
are really set in our ways.
Mm-hmm.
We want what we want when we want it. I think right now there are so many of us that are honestly fearful that one would think, or I would think, that there would be these massive uprisings, these obvious coalition building that I don't see. There are people in my life that are scared,
Mm-hmm.
and they have really good reason to be,
Mm-hmm.
not because they have done anything wrong or done anything to anyone, but because they're scared they're going to show up on a list.
Mm-hmm.
These are people in our math community, and this is not new. We've been here before in math. We've been here before in education. We've been here before in history. And it's hard for me to be around people who say that they are part of a collective who aren't acknowledging the times in which we find ourselves. Yes, I've been on a lot of committees and I've spoken in different places. And, that past 50 permission set in. And there are a lot of things that I just said no to, that I walked away from, because I just didn't feel that authenticity. And I know very acutely that I will not be on this planet forever.
Mm-hmm.
My time is valuable. I am choosing to be really intentional about who I'm building with, who I trust, who I call my loved ones. I need to know if I go to a conference and something happens, that people around me are going to take care of me. They're going to, do whatever it is that they need to
Mm-hmm.
do to lead me to safety. And if I don't have that, I shouldn't go. It's not about being seen as a leader. It's about actually leading. Who are you helping?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? We don't all have to do the same thing. We can't all do the same thing. We're not going to be part of the solution in the same ways. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also people that are paralyzed, or who don't know what to do, or are in denial.
Mm.
That's not leadership. I need to know where you stand so I can know how to move with you or not. That's also leadership.
Right. Right. And if there ever was a time for that, it's now. That's for sure.
Yeah.
In schools or not in schools, conferences or not in conferences. But I hear what you're saying.
I know you do.
Oh, sometimes being over 50 is like too much of a responsibility, because you know things and you can't ignore things anymore. Like when you're young, you feel like, oh, that's just happening over there. But when you're not young, it's not just happening over there. You understand that global is local and global will reach you. So you need to pay attention. Being young is much more blissful than this not being young.
Well, we're still young.
We are young, relatively
We're still
speaking, of
young.
course. Of
And
course.
I have gray hairs that I'm very proud of.
You earned them, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. I have a
Absolutely.
lot of them too. I'm just still pretending I don't. My hairdresser loves me. Oh, well, Marian, how can our listeners learn more about you if they should want
That
to?
is such an interesting question. I do have a website that you can send me a message through.
Mhm.
I will get it, although the website has not been loved in a while. So I'm not apologizing for it. I just don't know what I want to do with it next. So it stands frozen in time, we'll say. I am really not on social media much.
Mhm.
But if you need to or would like to get a message to me, that's a good place to start.
Right. Well, Heidi and I both, even though she's not here, really appreciate you giving us some of your time and talking to us about leadership. This has been almost one of the more heartfelt, I think, conversations that we have. I mean, everyone we talk to is fascinating and
Oh, yeah.
oftentimes telling us very personal stories, but your ideas of leadership are very heartwarming. So I appreciate you coming and talking to me. And I'm wishing you all the best with your endeavors that you have coming up.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's been great to just have an honest conversation. I appreciate that. Are you going
I know
to
I'm wondering when we're going to see each other next, actually.
well,
I'm going to
Atlanta?
camp. What's happening in Atlanta? Because I'm going to camp. Where's that?
NCTM and NCSM are in Atlanta this year.
Oh, no, but you'll see Heidi.
Okay. Okay.
Wait, we are going to that. We're going to NCSM.
Okay.
We'll see you there.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Okay, bye. All right. Our next show is on March 27th. We're going to have Shane Zafir and Crystal Watson. And I'm so excited to talk about street data with them. I actually don't know what their topic is, but we have to talk to them about that. So we will. And as always, you can find our book Map Activators at Didex. And until we see you in a couple of weeks, we hope that you make math creative, curious, and inclusive for everyone.